sports and TV show streams going live on YouTube, streaming live on YouTube. I think I need to switch it to front camera. This is a National Day video. It's National Zoo Lovers Day. And because it's National Zoo Lovers Day, I am putting up Rescue 911, Grandma Fire Save, Zookeeper Down. But I'm also going to play
Please wait.
Honeybee Horror and the 5-year-old on the ATV.
The epilogue of this. But with the many children on the airplane and the children were...
A lesson learned. Kids rely on what they were taught to save Grandma's life.
I was yelling to her, "Fire, get out of the house." I was afraid she wasn't going to get out. It's so heartbreaking.
Plus, a careless zookeeper falls prey to a caged cat.
Chance. There's 4 big puncture wounds to her throat. And I thought, she's dead.
On Rescue 911.
We begin in Springfield, Illinois in August of 1992, as Ana Juarez and her 2 children, Sonny and Crystal, were attending the state fair.
A great time at the Illinois State Fair.
Okay, let's go on the fire tent. Every year we go to the state fair and they have a fire safety tent where they teach the kids. They show you how to get out of a fire, how to talk to a lady when you're down 911, and when a situation like this happens, not to panic. My kids have done it for the last 8 years, and every year that we go back, they go automatically right to it.
On July 22nd, 1993, Anna went to work as usual, leaving her kids at home with their 79-year-old grandmother, Julia Juarez.
I woke up early in the morning to watch TV, and my grandma was cooking breakfast in the kitchen. I love my grandma just like she was my second mom. I was kind of bored, and so I went to my sister's room to wake her up, which I'm not supposed to do. Every time I do that, I get in trouble for it.
Crystal, wake up. Crystal, wake up. Come on, let's go. Whoa. Come on, let's go watch TV. Get up.
I got up really mad because he always wakes me up in the morning saying, "Uptime baby, uptime baby."
Come on.
I like to sleep late, around 12. I get up.
Go, fat cat.
We heard a popping noise, and a few minutes later, I smelled smoke.
Could you burn something in the kitchen? I don't know, I'll go check.
I was really scared when I seen those flames coming out of my sister's room. I didn't know what to do. Then I remember all the stuff they taught us at the state fair. My grandma was holding her hands and crying like she wanted to go inside our room to get her religious statues and stuff like that. With all the smoke and the fire, I thought my grandma was gonna die.
911 emergency. Hello?
When we continue.
I ran around to get my grandma out the back door. I was yelling to her, "Fire!"
Every day, we were given Walker. Walker, Texas Ranger. Now every Sunday from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Get TV.
broke out at the Juarez home. The only people there were 12-year-old Sonny Juarez, his 10-year-old sister Crystal, and their 79-year-old grandmother Julia. Someone managed to dial 911 from the house, but when the dispatcher got on the line, no one was there.
Hello?
I grabbed my sister and I told her we'll get out the back door.
Hello? 911 emergency. Sus, it's your grandma's house.
Joliet police dispatcher Susan Juarez was alerted that the mystery call was from her grandmother's house.
My supervisor couldn't get a response, so she thought maybe it was my grandmother calling, because my grandmother doesn't speak English.
I went next door to my Aunt Mary's house and I was pounding on the door and she wouldn't come out. I ran around to get my grandma out the back door. I was yelling to her, "Fire, get out of the house, fire." And she just wouldn't budge. She was just frozen.
Sonny told me there's a fire, and I ran. I was very scared. I was afraid she wasn't going to get out.
Hello? Sonny, if you're there, pick up the phone.
I was speaking in English and in Spanish, trying to get somebody to answer the phone.
911 emergency.
Another 911 call came in, and I looked on the screen, and it was my aunt's address.
Okay, we'll send him right over for you. Soon as the house is on fire.
When she said it was a fire, first thing that came through my mind was that my grandmother was there. And usually she's by herself. So I just wanted to get there to see if I could get her out and make sure she was out.
I'm scared for my grandma because I know how fast smoke can get to somebody. I said, "Come on, Grandma, come on, let's get out." I put my hand out and she grabbed my hand. I was glad that she came to me because I would be like really, really sad if she went into that room.
By the time I got next door, the fire was bad. If it wasn't for my niece and nephew, she would have stayed there. I tried to save her house.
Joliet Fire Department arrived within 3 minutes.
Is there anybody left in the house?
It was very tough seeing my house burning because the fire started in my room and I was thinking that I would have burned if my brother didn't wake me up.
As soon as Anna was notified of the fire at work, she rushed home to find her family.
When I saw my mom and my 2 kids in the front yard, and it was just like a big load off my chest. They're the most important thing in my life, and I just couldn't imagine even thinking that they wouldn't have gotten out of the fire.
I saw my grandmother standing in a yard. I've never been so relieved to see someone in my life. But the look of devastation on her face and to see her crying, it was so heartbreaking.
The cause of the fire was never completely determined.
The Springfield Fire Department's Child Safety House.
1 month later, the Juarez family returned again to the Illinois State Fair.
In a real fire situation,
I think every kid should go to the fire display at the state fair because some kids might not know what to do in a fire and they might end up killed.
What we're going to do here today, we're going to show you what to do.
Springfield Public Education Officer Bob England, who oversees the fire services exhibit, is proud of the impact it has on children.
The most popular exhibit that we have is their Survive Alive house. I want you to crawl over here and want you to feel that door. We teach them to crawl low, under smoke, and go, because flames will kill you, but smoke will kill you quicker. Here we go. If the door's hot, we don't want them to open it up. But if it's not hot, we want them to open it up. Is that door hot? Open it up. They're going to shut that door and they're going to go out the window. The second way out. Unlock it right here. Unlock it. Every person should have a planned evacuation procedure, and they should go over it with their families.
I learned to get out of a house safely and not to go back in a room where there's fire and stuff.
It's my honor.
Recently, the governor of Illinois presented Sonny and Crystal Juarez with a special heroism award.
My kids are the world to me, and when they do good things, I'm very proud. But something like this was the ultimate.
on behalf of the 11.5 million people, say thank you and congratulations.
I'm very proud of my brother for saving me, not panicking, and being very brave.
Kids have to be taught at a very early age. They have to plant it in their head how to get to safety, how to take care of people around you, and not to think that anything is more important than their lives, because it's not. We lost everything, but I still have my kids and I still have my mom.
Need help? ¿Necesita que te ayude?
We had a smoke detector, which for some reason didn't go off that day. Since we rebuilt the house, we've got smoke detectors on every floor with a battery backup.
I see my grandma every day, and I'm like really glad that we're still here. I love my grandma very much. If she hadn't made it, I would have missed her a lot, very much.
Like Thomas?
I'm very proud of my grandchildren. I raised them since they were little babies. I love them as though they were my own children. The children saved me. They are my guardian angels.
Next, a zookeeper's job entails a great deal of risk. Small human oversights can have catastrophic effects. People who care for wild animals know just how unpredictable they can be. On December 29th, 1994, 26-year-old zookeeper Judy McCullough was starting her usual morning rounds, putting out food and cleaning the exhibits at the Riverside Zoo in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, unaware that everything was not as it should be. The director at the zoo is Paul Price. A zookeeper's job is very structured and very routine because it is a job that entails a great deal of risk and potential danger. How do you fix that pool? You need to concentrate on what you're doing, double check and triple check everything that you do. Small human oversights can have catastrophic effects.
See you later.
Kelly Jensen was another zookeeper on duty that morning.
I went up to the zebra exhibit, and Judy was going to the cats.
Judy knew the cat had been locked up the night before, so she made the assumption that the cat wasn't present in the enclosure.
I just heard the short, startled scream. But I knew that she was still cleaning somewhere around the cats. I ran through the cat building, opened the door there, and then I saw Judy.
See anybody? I need anybody down to cats now.
An announcement came that there was an emergency situation in the leopard exhibit. I envisioned that we had an animal escape.
911 emergency?
This is Riverside Zoo. We need an ambulance. Okay. What's going on? There's a tiger that is trying to keep her down. Maybe loose. We're not exactly sure. All right. I'll get on the way.
Got Chaz in with Judy. Lock the door. Okay, let's get the cat out.
I had Bob secure the area, and then together we both screamed at him.
Hey, get off there, cat. Get off there.
The biggest concern I had was that the cat would attack her again.
Can you hear me? Judy! Can you hear me, Judy? Get off the
I was still banging on this drain pipe, and Bob was hitting the fence, and he finally backed off from her.
Come on, Chaz, come on. Can you hear me? Come on, Judy, Judy's down.
Leopards usually inflict a single bite to the throat and crush the trachea and kill by suffocation.
Right now, move it. Kelly, I need something.
I knew that she was, if not dead, she was gravely injured, and that we needed to get her out immediately.
Let's move it, right now. Let's go.
He brought back a Rubbermaid trash can lid and a squeegee.
Where's the shovel? She's got the shovel inside with her. Well, keep the squeegee. I can't do anything with that. Okay, now you're gonna follow me. Stay with me now. Okay.
When a leopard becomes possessive, you can't take anything away from them that they don't want to let go of.
Stay close.
We were afraid that he was going to challenge us for Judy, which was his prey.
Close. And if the cat comes at me, close the gate and wait for the rifle.
Okay.
Easy. Easy, Chaz. Steady. Easy, Chaz.
Easy.
Easy. Easy. Easy, Chaz. Easy. Easy, Chaz.
I kind of held my breath a little bit and thought, hey, here it comes. But then he backed off.
Easy. 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 Easy, Chaz. Easy. 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 Easy.
Once we got her out, I turned back around and looked at her. And I thought, she's dead.
The zoo veterinarian came to help, along with curator Caroline Meek.
You gonna be okay, Judy?
When he pulled her out, Judy just looked ghastly. Her color was like concrete.
Watch your breathing.
She was so limp and so gray.
Do CPR here. Keep it in. Be all right.
She started gasping for air. There's 4 big puncture wounds to her throat.
It's gonna be all right. It's all right. Keep her airway open.
She exhaled, and she started blowing foamy blood out the holes in her neck, and out her mouth, and out her nostrils. I was horrified.
Within 5 minutes, Valley Ambulance paramedic Dan Nation and his partner arrived on the scene.
Leopards either try to choke their victim down or try to snap their neck. But we knew she had an airway problem, whether she had crushed her trachea, how long she had been without air, and whether she fractured her neck. That was our biggest concern. She might have been without oxygen long enough that even though she was alive, long term could have meant a stroke or brain death.
At Regional West Medical Center, 26-year-old Judy McAuliffe was examined by ear, nose, and throat doctor James Massey.
3. Okay.
She was in severe danger.
Okay.
She continued to leak air from the injury in her voice box. That air then traveled under the skin into her chest and continued to compress her lungs. Had that gone on a great deal longer, she wouldn't have had the ability to breathe.
Yes, Mr. McAuliffe.
Paul called Judy's parents from the hospital.
At the Riverside Zoo.
I told them it was a very serious situation, and that we didn't know if she was going to make it or not.
We're in the emergency room now.
The biggest thing that I wanted to do was to assure her parents that Judy wasn't alone.
The CAT scan showed that 2 of the main arteries that supply the brain were clotted and no longer providing blood to the brain. A large incision was made in her neck for the purpose of exploring those arteries to be sure that they were not on the verge of rupturing, and that she had good circulation to her brain from the remaining 2 arteries. Then we proceeded with the reconstruction of her voice box and her trachea.
Michaela and William McAuliffe flew to Nebraska to be with their youngest daughter.
She was coming out of surgery, dopey, but she recognized us. She couldn't say anything, of course, but there was just a piece about her. I love Judy. She makes me smile with my heart.
Ted McGoldridge is the director at the Santa Barbara Zoo, him and I went to rock school together.
Judy's recovery has been remarkably quick.
The improvement was amazing, as you could see it by the hour. But I never expected her to be back to work in 2 weeks.
Gonna be a real true zookeeper.
Blessing is that she doesn't remember anything. Doesn't think a thing of it. Well, those things happen, I think, is her attitude. She'll just be a little more careful next time.
So, here they are. They're both,
together. You're there. Your buddy, Judy. Pretty kitty.
I think I was in a hurry and I got careless and I assumed the cat was not in there.
him and her this close together.
I don't have any emotional hang-ups about it, but I am a whole lot more careful than I used to be. I believe I said that very same thing.
Is that what you said? Exactly. When a person goes through something like this, either they decide zookeeping's not for me, or they're the best employee that you're ever going to have. You would choose not to season your zookeepers in this manner, but when this does happen, you thank God for every day that you're alive, because you're lucky to be here. And morale and just enough to say, hey, what's going on?
The doctors were very skillful. The firemen and the paramedics were wonderful, but the zoo director that pulled her out has to be the hero. I feel that he's saved her life.
You like to see cute things. Yummy, that's good stuff, huh?
I really enjoy the chimpanzees. I've been working with them for almost 4 years now, and I think of them as hairy people.
That's a good boy.
I love being a zookeeper. I couldn't be anything else.
Oh, that's my boy, yeah. That's good.
Meow.
my family and the children for granted anymore.
He didn't used to tell me he loved me, but now, every once in a while, he'll let it slip. He says, I do still love you a little bit. I said, yeah, okay,
The good Lord has got some other thing that he wants me to do. He's got a reason for me being alive. I don't know how many the viewers or whatever have grandkids or children. But to me, just the opportunity of being around and singing them, I'd go through it all over again.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911, an accident waiting to happen. A boy at the wheel of an ATV drives it straight into disaster.
Hey, God! Wyatt!
And she was saying, he's dead, he's dead.
Plus, a man fights for his life against a freak force of nature.
Drop to the ground and roll.
On Rescue 911.
When a child is injured, the whole family suffers. Sometimes the events can be so overwhelming that they challenge the limits of our faith. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories that remind us nothing should be considered impossible on Rescue 911. We begin on July 1st, 1992 in Holland, Ohio, where Scott and Connie Yoder live on a large tract of land near many other members of the family.
What a little friends.
Bikes, motorcycles, and racing, and cars. It's just all part of their life here that we all live.
5-year-old Wyatt was riding his ATV around the family compound that afternoon.
He didn't want to stop playing. He was having fun. Begged if he could stay home with his Uncle Sam across the street. I just had a feeling to tell him goodbye, which was strange. We'd already said bye, but something was telling me, don't leave me, man. And as I was going down the pasture, and that's when I seen the four-wheeler on its side.
My God! Wyatt! Wyatt!
I seen him laying down, his little leg laying beside him.
Wyatt, it's Mama!
I mean, it's almost like a horror film. It's what you would see on a screen. It's not what you'd see in your child.
When we continue,
his eyes would roll in his head and he would pass out, and then he'd come to, and I thought, it's gonna be a miracle if he even lives.
Every Saturday.
when 5-year-old Wyatt Yoder was seriously injured while riding his all-terrain vehicle in front of his aunt's house, his mother Connie ran to call 911. A next-door neighbor, David Teachout, heard Connie's screams for help.
I could see a body in the grass. And Connie was up on the balcony, and she was saying, "He's dead."
Prime Video, button 1 of 109 in a grade.
Wyatt, can you hear me?
Let's just straighten this a little bit. I'm not sure what really went through my mind when I moved the leg, because I know that you shouldn't do too much moving. My main thought was comfort for him.
Sam Yoder, Wyatt's uncle, tried to slow the bleeding.
His eyes would roll in his head and he would pass out, and then he would come to, and I thought, it's gonna be a miracle if he even lives.
Rescue units with the Springfield Township Fire Department got to the scene within 6 minutes, including paramedic William Montree.
It was our first day. We had just started the service, and it was opening day at the Big Top.
Sorry, Mama's here. It's okay.
Time was of the essence in this child's care. The only thing really holding the leg was a portion of the muscle group and some skin. So it was one of those, what we call a load and go. We don't want to be on the scene more than 10 minutes on a patient in his condition.
As soon as we get this on, I'll go up to the truck and get a hold of them, see what we're saying there, let you.
He was holding his little head and he said, "Mama, my leg, my leg." He thought everybody was on his leg. He was asking everybody to please get off my leg. And he said, "Mama, am I gonna die?"
You ready to go up on the
And
couch?
I said, "Lord, no, you're not gonna die, Wyatt. You're not gonna die. You're gonna be fine."
I got his leg.
But it's hard to tell him he's gonna be okay when you don't know.
As soon as Wyatt and his mother arrived at the Medical College of Ohio, the boy was taken to be examined.
There's nothing I could do but the separation. I was so afraid I was never gonna see him again.
You got no pulse in the leg, blood pressure?
Orthopedic surgeon Robert Bielski was one of the doctors treating Wyatt.
You know, obviously our initial concern is how unstable he was in terms of how much blood he had lost. Our second very important concern is whether or not this was a salvageable limb. Mrs. Yoder?
A doctor came up to tell us that there was probably nothing that they could do for his leg. It was gone.
Take a look at his leg now, and all this all.
Seeing it the way I did, I didn't think that there was anything they could do for the leg. I just wanted my son.
Count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Luckily, the 2 nerves were intact in the back of the knee, so there's a very high chance that he would get some return sensation and muscle function in his leg.
He was in surgery for, I believe, 6 hours. I think it was 2:30 in the morning before we got to see him. And the first thing he said was, "Mama, I want a fudge bar. I want to go home and I want to ride my bike." And it was hard because I never knew if he'd ever ride his bike again.
I'm gonna be downstairs.
During the surgery, Wyatt's father, Scott Yoder, joined his wife at the hospital.
It was a long wait, but it was the most wonderful sight in my life to see him rolling by us and taking him into intensive care.
Wyatt has already had 7 more operations to rebuild his leg, with more surgeries ahead, and he'll need physical therapy for a long time to come.
He knew he was hurt, and he knew he had to work hard. He knew he had to cooperate. He learned a lot of patience, as he had to lay in that bed on his back for a long time. Didn't break his spirit at all.
He was lucky that he didn't save his nerves, but also that nothing else really was hurt on him. And he was lucky that he was found, because obviously the amount of blood he lost, he could easily bled to death at the scene. I think that a valuable lesson anyone should learn from this situation is that the all-terrain vehicles are not toys.
I know people say, why would he be on that? Well, coming from our family, what we've grown up to be, what we've done in the past for years, it wasn't out of the ordinary for him to be riding. But in my heart now, if they can't pedal it or roll it, they don't have it. That's my new motto. What?
1 year later, the rescuers who helped save Wyatt still check in on him.
We had to drive right by Wyatt's house to get fuel for our truck, and we stop in once in a while and see him, and we get quite regular reports, which is nice.
You being careful now? Yeah. Well, I think there's several heroes. Jimmy and William and all his doctors that did what they did. Our neighbor man, David Teachout. You know, I call him Wyatt's little guardian angel. I could never thank them enough for what they've done. What's your biggest thing you've been doing? Playing. Yeah.
Next.
911, what is your emergency?
Meet Melanie.
Twenty-year-old Christopher Graves had been looking after a plot of land that his grandmother owned in Robstown, Texas, for more than 4 years. So when he showed up there on the morning of August 23rd, 1994, he had no reason to assume it was no longer safe to set foot on the property.
My son Chris said, "Mom, let's meet for lunch, because I'm going to be mowing right there near Robstown." We're just more like friends, really, than mother and son. He's never given me an ounce of trouble in his life. He had his mobile phone with him. I've always, since he's been doing this mowing, told him, in case anything happens, I want you to dial 911.
The Oasis County Sheriff's Deputy David Maldonado was driving by the area on routine patrol.
I saw a gentleman that was taking a tractor off of a trailer. Farmers are always moving tractors around with bush hogs, and it's not unusual to see something like that, so I just kind of really flew it off and just kept on going. The second time that I was coming around, he was already starting to mow.
Dispatcher Dorothy Pollard took the call.
What's the problem? I'm being attacked by killer bees. You're being attacked by killer bees. I'm being attacked by killer bees. Okay, hold on.
I heard the bees buzzing around his head, and I heard him screaming in pain. I knew that I was talking to a man that was getting stung over and over and over and over and over, and I really was at a loss of what to tell him.
I can't hear you. Are you inside your vehicle? Yes. Okay, stay inside your vehicle. Are you outside your vehicle? Can you get back inside of your vehicle? Okay, okay. Where are you at right now? Can you crawl under can you get anywhere away from the bees? Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Stay on the line. Stay on the line.
Every time I've dispatched to somebody, the guys go out there and they've gone into unbelievable situations and handled it. But this one, it's going to be a tough rescue.
Were you transporting the bees? Okay, get animal control on the line so I can get some advice.
On the third pass, it looked kind of funny from far away because you could see this cloud around him. He looked kind of hazy, but he didn't look like a real person. He had something around him. I thought they were gnats, but they were bigger than gnats, and what I started seeing was bees.
33.
Drop and roll. I've had training for traffic accidents and homicides and how to take care of a crime scene. How do I take care of a man who's covered with 3,000 or 4,000 bees?
Sir? You got a sheriff's deputy there? Is the officer getting out of the car or is he staying in his vehicle? I can't hear you. Is the officer getting out of his car or is he staying in his vehicle? He's going to pass out. Okay, what is the officer doing? Can you get in the car? You go get in the officer's car, okay? I can't get in. Can you walk? Are you laying down?
People tend to think about a bee. It's such a small little thing, but I mean, when you have 10,000 little things, it becomes one big thing, and it could kill you. About the same moment, I started thinking, hey, you're allergic to bees.
Okay, I'm going to get the fire department. Hold on. Stay on the line. Stay on the line. Sir? Okay, we got the fire department on the way. Or there's an officer there.
It was silent. I mean, it was silent after that. We had no earthly idea what was going on. He sounds like he's not going to make it. And I thought, was mine going to be the last voice he ever heard?
Robstown firefighter Ernest Gallegos and his partner arrived.
I looked towards the victim. He looked like a grass person, grass all over his face, but it was all bees. I couldn't even see his eyes. I yelled to Richard, I'm being attacked by bees.
Fire Chief Julio Flores took charge of the scene.
They just couldn't do it. We didn't have the proper gear for what we encountered. I was gonna have 2 more victims, and I said, I'm gonna have to get these guys out. That was one of the hardest decisions, if not the hardest decision I ever had to make as a chief.
Animal Control Supervisor Noe Perez had some training in dealing with bees.
If they attack you, you need to immediately leave the area because they will defend their colonies. I knew that there was someone that was being attacked. I didn't know that it wasn't the deputy. These bees can do 12 to 15 miles an hour, and they will pursue you for approximately 3 football fields. And that's why you better run. You better break some records.
I don't know how fast he was going, but the wind rush and everything got the bees off of me. By that time, I was already wheezing.
You need to have the protective suit, a bee suit. The better thing to do if you don't have a bee suit is not to go in. The ambulance personnel was on standby. They're pretty much just waiting for someone to do the actual rescue. At that point, officers Roland Galvan, Tito Trevino motioned me that they found the victim. He was just covered, from head to toe, literally. The sheriff's unit then escorted us over to the hospital. So just a matter of trying to go as fast as we can.
At Riverside Hospital, emergency physician Dan Bywater headed up the trauma team treating the victims.
Deputy Maldonado was brought in, but he was relatively stable. Then we went over and took a look at Chris, and I was shocked.
He was covered fully with bees.
I've been told before that 300 to 400 bee stings can easily be a lethal dose to a normal adult human. This guy had 2 to 3 times that easily.
Let's get some bug spray, too.
When you see something like this, for just a split second, all your medical training goes out the window. We tried to start the IVs, but the bees just made that impossible. You would try and say things, but he had bee stings on his tongue. You really wonder if there's anything you can do. He had youth and good health in his favor. But you wonder about kidney failure that's going to occur 1, 2, 3, 4 days down the line.
You're gonna be okay.
Hello.
Chris's girlfriend, Audra Baumgartner, happened to call him on his cell phone.
You know, all I could say was I got stung by some bees, you know, and I'm at the hospital. And I thought maybe he just got stung a few times and that he was having an allergic reaction. Because I thought, well, he's, you know, able to answer the phone. He obviously isn't that bad off.
He's still very ill. I would say he's probably critical at this point.
Chris's mother, Charnel, went to be with him as soon as Audra told her what had happened.
He and I have just gone through a lot together in life, and he's just the best son a person could ever have. I just said, God, you're just going to have to help me and help him, and I just expected God to do it.
Keep the faith, okay? I love you.
20-year-old Chris Graves was transferred to Spawn Hospital, where he was given large amounts of fluids and antibodies to try to fight off kidney failure.
Okay.
I know that 911 call saved his life. No question. And that was the first smart thing he did. Did what his mother said.
The other one's worse than this one is.
Yeah.
2 months have passed.
Yeah. I get occasions where I have hives that pop up on me. But other than that, I feel great. My strength's being built back up, and I'm getting back to normal. Like border lines, fence lines, and stuff like that.
Subsequent university identification determined that they were ordinary honeybees, not killer bees.
I think in his case what happened is he was mowing with the tractor. The vibration, the noise is what agitated them. And when that happened, he pretty much just stayed in place, and that's when he was overcome with them.
You can't wipe them out from the world. They're all over. So now what we're doing is learning how to live with them a little bit more and how to deal with them.
I thank everyone that did anything, but mainly animal control. Even though they had to throw him in the back of a pickup truck and drive him to the hospital, he said it was just like the movie, The Birds, but it was the bees.
I have to say he's stronger than most people because I don't think most people can handle being stung over 1,000 times by bees. He's a very, very brave guy.
If he wants to be in horticulture or whatever he wants to do, he will do it with all the gusto possible. But it's scary. You have no control over Mother Nature. Anything can happen.
Meow.
This is 911.
In main menu.
Okay. Now I'm not going to be doing Rescue 911 videos with Tiki Live. Now I'm going up front to my living room and I'm using Get TV and I'm gonna put today's episodes on here. But, like, you know, if there was like a February episode or a January episode, then on Commando TV, Get TV Catch Up doesn't go that far. So, I mean, it only goes back a couple days, you know, 5 or 6 days. So, like, this is going to be Rescue 911 Death Save.
Today on Rescue 911, panic in the night.
Call came in as a burglary in progress.
A deaf woman and her children face an armed intruder.
And I told my son, there's a man here, please help me.
Witness a narrow escape for help as her children lay unprotected in bed. Plus,
I was desperately looking for a place with more air.
a cave diving adventure turns deadly for 2 South American divers on Rescue 911.
There are few things more frightening than facing a crisis with your children. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of life or death battles and races against time on Rescue 911. We begin in Chattanooga, Tennessee on the evening of October 25th, 1989. For the Armour family, almost everything in life is harder. Both Annette and her husband Larry are deaf. They can neither call for help when they're in trouble, nor hear any sounds of approaching danger.
Annette's husband was visiting a friend that night, leaving her alone in the house with her 3 small children. She gave them baths, put them to bed, then went to sleep herself in her daughter's bed.
Call came in as a burglary in progress. I think they gave some information about a man was seen in the house, which of course causes your heart to race just a little bit.
His intent wasn't to steal the television. With the rope
denies his actions. Put it bluntly, I believe he was in there to rape Miss Harmon.
Whew. Oh.
Went to the kitchen, acting almost like a blind man or something. Almost like he was drunk. This really scared me to death. I don't understand why he didn't follow me. It was at night, you know, and maybe he couldn't see me. I woke up my son, and I told my son, there's a man here in the house. Please help me. We saw this man that was in my kitchen, and he was by the refrigerator. I told my son, come on, let's go, just be quiet.
With no phone, Annette was forced to leave the house to try to get help, taking her 5-year-old son Larry as her interpreter.
I was wondering about the man. I hope you don't do anything to my kids, and I was very nervous if I had woke them up. They would have been crying, and I was afraid that would have made the man come after us. I just didn't mean to leave my kids there for them to get any harm.
When we continue.
Your first instinct is, of course, to rush right in and try to protect children, but at the same time, you've got to use what you've been taught.
Benefits with a Medicare Advantage plan that includes additional
She told me she was asleep, and that she woke up and he was standing over her. So I just dialed 911.
Join the Bunkers for some family time. All in the Family, weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern.
I wanted to call the police to come and get this man so my kids would be safe. I didn't want to lose any one of my kids. They're my family.
The only neighbor Annette knew was the woman across the street, Odessa Ray.
Must have been around 1:30. I heard someone knocking at our back door. And around here, you just don't ever get up and open the door. You're going to see first who it is. I knew right away something bad was wrong, you know, because that time of night and all. You can tell when anybody's in trouble. You can tell, you know, by their actions or emotions. And she told me she was asleep, and that she woke up and he was standing over her. So I just dialed 911.
911 emergency, can I help you? Could you send the police to Nelson 1613? It's my neighbor and she's a mute, and she says there's a man in her house. Okay, you live next door to me? Yes, I do. Okay, now, is she at your house? Yes, Did you know the man that's in the house? I don't think so. Okay, now we'll get somebody out there. So there's a baby in the house.
I needed to hurry up and get the police started on something like that, so I disconnected with her.
Operator Sharon Feathers quickly passed the information to the dispatcher.
I sort of put myself in that situation that if that was my children I'd had to flee from and live in a house with a stranger, the terror that I would be going through. You try to alleviate that terror as fast as you can.
I was wondering what might happen, what he might do. He might kill one of them.
I know it was tough on her leaving her 2 little kids. She's foolish about her kids. I mean, she's really a good mother.
Miller, man, this is the police department. Is that lady still there with you? Yes, she is. She couldn't give you any kind of description at all about the guy or anything. Her little boy said he was black. That's the little boy if he knows his name. Is he there when you talk to him? Yes. You want me to see if he can talk to you? Okay, wait just a second. Okay. Hey, can you get me a little bit? Did you know that man that's in your house? You do know him? No. You don't know him? Okay, did he break in the front door or something? No. How old are you? 5. You're 5? Yeah. Okay. Do you know, is your baby brother or somebody in the house? My sister, my baby brother in the house. Your sister and baby brother in the house. Okay, where's that man at in your house? You know? Where's the see him at? He's in the kitchen.
I instantly told Tim. I didn't even wait. He dispatched that out to the officers where the man was last seen. Then I stressed the point, did you know the man?
Never had seen him before.
The little boy assured me that they did not know this person.
Officers Stone and Ganaway arrived at the scene.
Unfortunately, they don't give us anybody to tell who the good people are and who the bad people are on a call. So the more information, as far as description or where they were last seen is essential. It's very important.
Okay, I found the point of entry. Got a broken window on the side of the house. As far as they found, there are still 4 victims in one of the bedrooms.
Your first instinct is, of course, to rush right in and try to protect children. But at the same time, you've got to use the procedures and you have to use what you've been taught.
Lieutenant Fuson went to the left to secure that area, and myself and Officer Ganaway approached the kitchen.
Officer Stone looked into the kitchen, and I could tell by the look on his face that he saw somebody behind the refrigerator.
When we first saw him, we weren't sure what kind of weapons he might have, so my main focus at that time was just to secure the subject.
The suspect was ordered several times to keep his hands visible. I don't know if it was drug-induced sluggishness or just his general mental state, but he was pretty sluggish. I then noticed that one of the children was behind him in a bedroom. If this suspect had suddenly decided that he either did not want to be placed in custody or tried to harm one of us, that child was about as close into my direct line of fire as it could be. We began searching and noticed 2 sections of rope about 1.5 feet long each that were in his pockets. We also found 3 butcher knives, which he had concealed in his boots.
The rest of the house was searched. When it was found to be clear, they turned all the lights on, and by that time, other officers had come in, and they were with the children.
I felt very relieved that there was no harm done to my children. And the police said, "You are very lucky." And I said, "Oh, I am very lucky."
The man arrested at the scene was found incompetent to stand trial. Three months later, the Armour family still has not forgotten the events of that night.
I was afraid, I went
run home to see my wife, see what had happened. I asked my wife, "Were you hurt?" She said no, she was safe because my son had called the police and 911. I was very thankful that my son had helped my wife. I'm very proud of my son, Larry, for what he did.
Had he not been with her, I don't think that anyone would have understood what her problem was. Because I think he did a fairly good job of interpreting, was able to communicate with the neighbor and give us additional information that we needed.
With the help of several local organizations, the Armour family was able to get their first telephone, including a TDD unit specially designed for the deaf.
The TDD is really the only window to the world for some of these families who are hearing impaired. They can communicate with the TDD just like you and I can with the telephone if there's a receiver on the other end. And in our community, we were fortunate in having these terminals on the other end at law enforcement office, the medical center, so that they can call 911.
I am so happy about this. My son, he almost got wild too. I had to calm him down and say, "Oh, wait a minute, you can't be calling grandmother all the time," and because my relatives don't live here, so they'd be long distance. I'm so proud of him. He is a real smart boy. He is teaching the other two sign language too. I love him so much. Not just one, but all of them, all three of my kids.
Next.
I was more and more scared. They didn't have special equipment. They needed to have to go in the cave. About the idea, I had my second thoughts about going to.
Kids just like me have the best part of our day.
Catch Amen on Funny Side Up every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern.
On July 13th, 1991, some friends set out to explore an underwater cave in the jungles of Corimagua, Venezuela. But the map they had of the many chambers inside the cave was incomplete, leaving some unanswered mysteries which they hoped to solve.
The expedition was led by 32-year-old Gustavo Badillo. Gustavo's fiancée, Maria Elena Mendoza, had also come along.
I was never too happy about the idea. I had my second thoughts about going to the cave. And I didn't like the jungle, but Gustavo said, "I won't go if you're not going." So I said, okay.
Their destination was located deep inside the rainforest, so they did not arrive until just before nightfall. Park Ranger Asmel Palencia had been hired to guide them to the place called Acarite.
The truth is, I was afraid because I've never entered into that cave. There are stories where they say he who enters that cave gets lost, never to come out again.
Gustavo planned to dive with his friend Eduardo Wallace, although neither of them had been trained for cave diving.
Before going to the cave, we went over the original map that we had. We were not concerned about any danger.
I was more and more scared. They had the suits, the mask, but they didn't have special equipment. They needed to have to go in the cave. So I said, well, then take this prayer and keep it with you.
We didn't have a cave dive reel, but we had different kind of ropes. on the map there was a passage with a question on it that nobody has gone through. We just wanted to go in there and to see how far we could get.
The entrance to the first passage was about 30 feet below the surface.
At the beginning, it was pretty much clear. But the smog from the rock was coming off, so behind us, the visibility was turning into zero. The cave was very much more complex than we thought at the beginning. I got to a place where there was a big chamber. I heard Gustavo coming out from the water, but I could not see him. We talked through the walls, and I said that we better go back because if we continue to go into the cave, we were not going to be so sure which was the way out. I was swimming toward what I thought was the entrance. I found myself in a dead end. I finally realized that I was wrong. I didn't think about Gustavo at that moment. After a while, I thought a big chamber, and I knew that I was outside.
I said, why are you asking me if Gustavo's here? Gustavo's with you. And he says, no, we got lost at the entrance. I was shocked. So I said, you go back and find him. Because he must be right there.
Gustavo had all the ropes, so we made a line, probably between 10 and 15 feet. Ricardo hauled one end, and I hauled the other, and I went below as long as the rope.
Kids just like me have the best part of our day.
Catch Amen on Funny Side Up every
We sat there, and nobody said a word until the sun came out. Every minute that went on was a minute against his life. And the bottom of my heart, I thought that he was gone.
Today on Rescue 911, a South American cave diving nightmare continues.
And the bottom of my heart, I thought that he was gone.
Be there as rescue specialists are flown in from the United States.
We thought that it was completely unrealistic that he would be alive.
To find a man trapped for more than 72 hours. Then,
sir, are you okay? Response me.
passengers attempt to save a choking man by performing an onboard operation on Rescue 911.
While diving in an underwater cave in the jungles of Venezuela, Gustavo Badillo became lost somewhere deep below the surface. As soon as it was light the next morning, his friends drove to the nearest town and called everyone they could think of for help, including the owner of the dive shop where Gustavo worked.
Hello? I have some experience in cave diving, but I've never done a rescue. I just wasn't trained to do it. So right away, I called a friend of ours in Florida. I knew that if anybody was the person to do it, was Steve.
Steve Gerard is one of the most experienced cave divers in the United States.
She wanted me to come down immediately to help find him.
I can come down if you want me to.
I had no idea where in Venezuela that it was located. There's a lot involved in getting ready to go down to where you are.
A friend of Gustavo's, Leo Calagaro, who had done some cave diving, heard of the accident and flew in to make a rescue attempt of his own.
When I saw him, I hugged Leo and started crying because for me it was my last hope.
Era un amigo. He was a friend. He was also a human being. I had to do something for him.
By this time, it had been more than 24 hours since Gustavo first entered the cave.
By and by, they came back out. They said they cannot enter. They didn't have the right equipment, and they didn't want to make the same mistake. When I came out, everyone was upset. Everyone. I told Maria Elena it's best if you leave, because tomorrow when they come, they may pull out a corpse.
So I took all Gustavo's belongings. I left his jacket because it's going to be very cold, and his chocolate bar. He always had one after he died. I said, this is it. No, it's over.
When we continue.
Now we're into almost 36 hours of man missing. We thought that it was completely unrealistic that he would be alive.
If you
But hurry, if you wait until you need a home service repair,
It'll be too late.
Call 1-800-931-8129. Again, that's 1-800-931-8129 or log on to getahomeplan.com today.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Robert Goldwater.
I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Then I found out the weed killer Roundup may have caused my cancer. The company knew it wasn't safe. How could they do this to people?
The Roundup manufacturer has been ordered to pay $2 billion to victims of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Call 1-800-309-3500 or go to rounduplawsuitclaim.com.
School's in session with the Steve Harvey Show, weekdays at 7 on Get TV.
It's very rare to find anyone alive in a cave. We've had over 325 fatalities in Florida alone.
Steve had convinced his friend, John Orlowski, a specialist in diving river caves like Acarite, to go with him to South America.
Well, if he's been in 50-degree water for that length of time, you have to realize he's hypothermic and probably dead.
In my mind, I was going to Venezuela do a body recovery.
The trip from Florida was 1,500 miles by air and land. By the time Steve and John arrived at the cave, it was 7 o'clock on the morning of the third day.
Mis compañeros y yo, por supuesto, my friends and I, we moved as fast as possible to help them get the equipment down. No sabíamos si llorar. We didn't know whether to cry or laugh or what, because we felt that salvation had come.
last thing I said to the crowd was, well, let's hope for a happy ending.
But now we're into almost 36 hours that the man's missing. We thought that it was completely unrealistic that he would be alive. You couldn't see anything. You could barely see your hand in front of your face. We could have been inches away. We could have passed the body 6 times and never even seen it. Steve said at that point, I'm just sit here for about 2 hours and go out and tell them we go find them. Because we're not going to find them in this. But it was like, okay, we're here, we have a job to do, let's get it done and get the hell out of here. I felt like I'd made a left-hand turn. You can't see, it's just a feeling you have. I saw a light flash. And I went, oh, you dumb shit. You just swim around in a circle and you're coming right back up on Steve. So I popped my head up and I said, yeah, Steve, what? All I see is this person stumbling towards me. At that point, the victim had already grabbed me and was hugging me.
See? You realize that this was not a dream.
We started doing a lot of high-fiving, and it was like, I can't believe it. He's alive.
I let out a scream that was heard, I'm sure, several kilometers away. I thought at that moment it was so incredibly happy.
I'll never forget that with my mom. It was like from a movie, seeing that.
Apparently, Gustavo had gotten tangled in the guide rope and became disoriented while trying to free himself.
I kept swimming through different passages. I was thinking, why is this happening to me? My legs. It was difficult to swim because they would fall asleep from the cold. Time passed, I'm not sure how much. I practically couldn't feel my body. I saw the water, how it turned white. I thought the angels had come for me. And I said, oh my God, heaven is English and the angels are English.
Gustavo and Eduardo did a foolish thing. They went to this cave without having the right equipment or really knowing how to do it correctly.
Gustavo Badillo was treated for exposure and dehydration and released from the hospital that same day. 1 year later, he and Maria Elena were married.
Tengo problemas con María Elena.
I have problems with Maria Elena because she suffered a lot with this, and she's very much afraid of all my expeditions.
Gustavo likes to go to the mountains, to the beach, motorcycle rides, many places that I've never been because I've been very city type person. But I love him a lot. He loves my son, and as long as I can and God gives us life, I hope we'll be together.
Oh, they're in the swimming pool.
Gustavo plans to return one day to explore the mystery.
Just like in 5-year-old ATV. At the end, the boy was swimming in the swimming pool.
We have to tell him how dangerous that adventure could be. I think there is doses of inexperience in all this. It's good to be brave, but it's good to think about what you're doing.
Que Steve y John. That Steve and John would come down from the United States and want to rescue me without even knowing me. I think that that's a true miracle. Thank God the angels came and they saved me.
lady calmly said to me, "Sir, I don't think my husband's breathing." I knew it was total airway obstruction.
Meet Melanie, the hopeless romantic.
He's a plumber.
Westbound en route to San Antonio. We're probably about 100 miles east of Memphis.
The plane had leveled off at 35,000 feet. Meals were being served, and flight attendant Dan Matthews was passing out beverages.
Anything with lunch today, sir? I was serving a passenger sitting in a window seat, and the lady in the row right behind him calmly said to me, "Sir, I don't think my husband's breathing." He was darkish gray, kind of hunched over. He was not making any motion. Ladies, I need you to up and out of your seats right away. Unbuckle your symptoms that were taught in our initial training. I knew it was total airway obstruction.
Sir, are you okay? Sir, are you okay? Respond to me. Respond.
Using the skills he had learned in his flight training, Dan immediately began performing the Heimlich maneuver.
Respond, sir.
Doing good. Keep going.
Still Are you sure it's still blocked? It's still blocked. The abdominal thrusts were not working because I could not get him up high enough to get the force. So I started doing chest compressions.
Come on. Don't quit. Keep going. Doing good. That's it.
Is it coming out?
It's not coming out yet.
I'm not quite sure I could say he was dead or alive at that point, but I knew we better get on the ground or we better get something done here right away.
The victim's 79-year-old wife had been sitting next to him.
It happened so suddenly. And before I knew what was happening, the stewards took me away so that I didn't realize it was as serious as it was.
First-class flight attendant Mike Sullivan notified the captain and the co-pilot there was a medical emergency on board.
Started the Heimlich maneuver. The guy's unconscious and non-responsive.
We're not at liberty to leave the cockpit, so a medical emergency is left up more to the discretion of the flight attendants.
Let us know what you need help. Keep us up. Will do.
Up ahead, there was a commotion on the airplane, and I turned to Eddie and I said, "Eddie, I think something's going on up ahead." I said, "I'm going to go up there and see if I can help him out."
I'm a doctor. Doctors Eddie Sanders and Charles Plotkin, two anesthesiologists, happened to be on board.
I gave several attempts at a Heimlich maneuver and didn't feel as though I could get anywhere.
It had been 4 minutes since the victim's airway was blocked.
So I said, well, if he's choking, the Heimlich doesn't work. I figured a back slap would work well for him. But we did that, and the situation didn't change at all.
I did a quick finger sweep. There was nothing there, and I attempted mouth to mouth.
Try to give me another breath. I can't move anything.
Wasn't able to move any air. That is not characteristic of successful mouth-to-mouth ventilation. I should have the sense that I could breathe easily from my lungs into his. Tried to check a pulse on the patient, a carotid pulse, and felt absolutely nothing.
Okay, he's still not breathing.
He was about as blue as a pair of blue jeans. He was totally lifeless. If this guy had been in my operating room, I would be really worried. I'd be calling out for help.
They were more than 15 minutes from the nearest airport large enough to land the plane.
We're running out of time. We know what needs to be done. We don't have the equipment.
You have to move some air, or nothing is going to be successful from this point on. And at that point, I said, okay, we're going to have to cut this man's neck. We're going to have to get a surgical airway.
Eddie, we have to do a surgical airway. Give me a knife. Somebody got a knife. I need a knife. Does anybody have a knife?
There was not a moment to wait. If I don't do this, this man is not going to make it. He's going to be dead. I have nothing to lose here.
From somewhere on the plane materialized a Swiss Army knife.
Open it for me. Give me the big blade, please.
There's no time to sterilize anything. If the man lives to get an infection, you've done a great job.
Hold it real still. Okay, I got it right there. We're gonna have to put something in here, Eddie. We need a pen, please, a tube of some kind.
We asked for a pen to give us some ability to provide a little bit of oxygen to this patient.
Which one, Fred? Yeah, that's right. Can you take that apart, from the bottom part, please?
I held my finger in that hole. But as I did that, I felt something against it, and instinctively I just pushed it. The obstruction came out his mouth, and it appeared to be a very large, partially chewed piece of meat. He began to breathe a little bit, and it appeared that his heart had restarted. And then I'm faced with a whole different problem, and that's the problem of bleeding. Something I had not anticipated. It just started coming out, and it came out in a big gush. More blood than I've ever seen. And I worked in an operating room every day of my life. Crossed my mind at that point that we had saved him from the initial problem, but he's now going to bleed to death. We needed to land the plane right then.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical emergency on board, and at this time we're going to need your cooperation because we're going to be diverting and landing in Memphis.
But I'm used to dealing with airway problems, but I'm not used to dealing with bleeding problems. The only way I know to stop bleeding is to put pressure on it. And I realized that maybe if I squeezed around the loose skin that's in the neck area here, bring it together around the pen cap, then I could at least put pressure on whatever was bleeding. The gentleman at that point began to flail around a little bit, to move, to fight. My concern is that he was going to stand up and probably rip everything out of his neck. It literally took both of us to try to keep him from moving.
So what do you like to do for us? Oh, guys, down.
He was starting to regain almost his normal color. And we actually got him to squeeze my hand to command. And that's all I wanted. That means the brain was working. When the plane got to a stop, by that time, the door was open and there was an ambulance there.
Paramedics packaged the 89-year-old victim for transport to the hospital.
We were able to get the man out of the airplane very quickly. The paramedics carrying him in a stretcher with my hand still on his neck, holding the pressure until we got to the ambulance. And at that point, I could not hold my fingers like that anymore. I couldn't, they had got to the point where they're so tired, I couldn't hold the tight pressure. Well, I let go. There was no bleeding.
En route to the hospital, Dr. Plotkin spoke with one of the paramedics.
I said, do you come out here often for these sort of things? He says, usually it's to come out and get somebody off the plane, but usually they don't survive. And I kind of felt a little bit good that time, because I said, well, not today, not with this man, okay? This man's gonna make it. After it was over, there was just this tremendous rush of emotions and utter amazement that we're on the flight, we're side by side. It just happens we both see it. We're able to respond as a team. It's one of the most incredible coincidences that I could ever imagine.
Jack Sykes completely recovered. 2 years later, he looks back on that day from his home in Yorkshire, England.
My last memory was...
has literature which is among the oldest in Europe.
Every night, before I go to sleep, I say, I love you, in case I die in the night, so that you remember that my very last words were, I love you.
Today on Rescue 911, a step too far.
I
heard a wail like nothing you've ever heard.
A young child gets caught in the teeth of an escalator.
I figured he was gonna die right there in front of my eyes.
Be there as a young man makes a heroic attempt to save a child being strangled by his own clothes. Then, a day on the cliffs turns deadly as a teen plummets over 100 feet to the rocks on Rescue 911.
On January 20th, 1993, in Calgary, Canada, Stephanie McIntosh and her 3 children had spent the afternoon shopping at a mall. Instead of taking a cab home, she decided they would ride one of the commuter trains. No one was more excited than her 4-year-old son, Michael, who, like many boys his age, loved trains.
When we got into the C train station, I tried phoning home. Rebecca and Taylor were right beside me, but Michael's always kind of running ahead, and he's a handful. I guess I was kind of having a rough day, but I kind of got a little upset when I was on the phone. I didn't know he was on the escalator.
When we continue.
Red and white stuff started coming out of his mouth, and that's when I really started freaking out because I figured he was gonna die right there in front of my eyes.
Our pal Walker has some new buddies he wants you to meet.
You're not gonna use a gun, Trent.
Nathan Gray was on his way home from work.
I walked toward.
Are absolutely free, and there is no obligation to enroll. Call the Go Medicare Benefits Help Center now at 800-755-6840. That's 800-755-6840.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services by Thomas J. Henry Law.
Attention military service members who used dual-ended combat arms earplugs between 2003 and 2015. 3M has agreed to pay out $9.1 million to resolve allegations that they sold defective earplugs to our troops. If you have ringing in the ear, hearing loss, or tinnitus, you may be entitled to compensation from 3M, not the U.S. government. Time is running out. Call now for a free case review. Call 1-800-608-0947.
Join the Bunkers for some family time. All in the Family, weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern.
"18-year-old Nathan Gray was on his way home from work.
I walked towards the escalator. There was a young child laying at the bottom. I heard a wail like nothing you've ever heard. All of his clothes had been pulled into the bottom of the escalator. I tried to yank him free, but I didn't move him an inch.
I was walking across from the phones, and I heard Michael. When I got down there, his arm was caught in and it was cutting off his circulation.
It was cinching his clothes tighter and tighter around him. It was starting to choke him, but I didn't know where the emergency stop buttons are.
Shut it off! Somebody shut it off!
Once it was off, I tried to pull him some more, but it was just no use.
He
he was still choking, and this blood and white stuff started coming out of his mouth, and that's when I really started freaking out because I figured he was going to die right there in front of my eyes.
The call to the emergency 911 center was transferred to EMS dispatcher Don Papineau.
Calgary paramedic dispatch. Hello?
I'm speaking from Randall Electrician, the convenience store.
Okay, what is the problem there?
Yeah, a boy has fallen down, like I can't sleep properly, but the mother is crying.
Is he conscious and breathing?
I'm upstairs and the lady's downstairs, yeah.
Okay. When did this happen?
I could tell that there was something quite serious going on by all the background noise. But exactly what, I didn't know.
You're in line with me.
Medic 22, responding Bravo.
His face had turned a very deep purple and blue because of lack of oxygen. I pulled out my pocket knife and tried to cut his jacket free, but the clothes were pulled so tight that I could barely get the knife underneath it to cut.
My heart was being ripped apart. And then he just went like into a cold stare, and I just kept telling him, like, Michael, Mommy's here. And it was just cold.
James Hilson also stopped to help.
He wasn't breathing. And I thought maybe he was dead.
I wasn't making any headway at all, so I handed the knife over to James. I had heard somebody say they needed someone to talk to the 911 operator.
Hello, ma'am? Hello? Yes, with the rental train station. It's moved in. You guys closed on right at the bottom. He's all wrapped up. We're trying to cut him free, but he's not breathing right now. Okay, he's not breathing. Now, is he conscious? Is he conscious at all, is he? No? Not from what we can tell. No? No.
I've only been in the dispatch room for 3 months, but I've been a paramedic for 13 years. It was hard because you want to jump in there and do something for the young lad, but you know you can't.
I want you to go down and check on his breathing for me. Okay, we'll do that now and come back to the phone. All right.
As soon as I cut the shirt and the waistband of his pants, that's when he started screaming, yelling.
It's the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard.
I felt almost 100% relief because I figured even if he had brain damage or something like that, like at least he was still alive.
We still couldn't get him loose.
Within minutes of the call, the first EMS unit arrived, including paramedic Doug Lewis.
Nobody apparently had seen what had happened. My first feeling when I saw Michael was how anybody could get trapped the way he was. He had what they call petechial hemorrhaging, these little blood spots solid all over his face, which is an indication of severe suffocation. His right arm was twisted, and we had to cut the sleeve out from underneath the plate because his hand was turning blue, losing circulation in there.
Good. Attaboy. Deep breaths. In and out.
A unit from the Calgary Fire Department, led by Captain Ray Ross, arrived with equipment needed to try to free the boy.
It looked like part of his body could have been pulled into the escalator toe plates. He was in a great deal of pain.
I was able to comfort him and let him know that this thing is not going to hurt you anymore. We're going to help you.
We're just about done, and these firefighters are behind you. They're going to get you free from here, okay? You understand that?
There was so much material and skin underneath the stairs and the plates that it made it difficult to unloosen the screws.
Right. Okay. It's all fine. Okay. Okay. We actually need somebody for C-spine here. Okay, that's okay.
As we were ready to take him off the escalator, we were able to have a really good look at the extent of his injuries. He had a complete fracture of his arm, which was twisted around, and pinching marks on his left arm and down his left side from shoulders to hips. And we felt that after all that had happened to him, he was a very lucky boy to get away with the injuries that he did.
4-year-old Michael McIntosh was taken to Alberta Children's Hospital, where he was treated for a severely broken arm and examined for possible lung damage from the strangulation. One of the first people to visit him was Nathan Gray.
The only image that really I remember is when he was, I guess it was just before he lost consciousness, he was blue in his eyes and just saying, "Help me." And
Nathan's 18 years old and he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders for doing what he did. I just couldn't express enough thanks to him. If he wouldn't have been there, Michael probably would have died.
What I would say to any parent is if you have children and you know escalators are around, certainly be careful with them. Make sure that they don't have any dangling clothes. Take them by the hand and make sure that they understand that it is potential to be very dangerous.
You said, stay where your mom is. And Daddy.
he's not too receptive to me these days. I don't blame him. He remembers the situation every time he sees me. But I received a phone call a day or two ago, and a little voice on the other end said, "Thank you for saving my life," and it was nice to hear.
Next.
We climbed. I personally myself started getting a little bit scared, and I'm sure the others did too, but we wanted to prove to each other that we can make it up the hill.
All right now, Get TV fans, don't be left in the dark. Get on over to our
Medicare Advantage plan could help lower your out-of-pocket costs by up to $1,200 or more. The MedicareAdvantage.com hotline is open. Call now for your free, no-obligation Medicare benefits review. The sooner you call, the sooner you get the benefits you deserve.
Call now. 800-956-0611. That's 800-956-0611. Call now.
Catch Amen on Funny Side Up every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern.
On March 15th, 1989, 3 college students from a small town in Texas were enjoying their spring break in Southern California. They had been cautioned by their parents to be careful on their trip out west, but 19-year-old Ed Cozen and his friends never imagined they'd find trouble while walking along the beautiful beach in the peaceful community of Malibu.
Jody and Jeff and me, we were very, very close. In very few lifetimes, they're close as friendship as we have. We're like brothers.
Let's go for a swim, guys.
No way.
On that water.
Hey, what do you guys think about this?
We're on the beach, and we see this cliff, and it's incredible. And we decide, it's there, let's climb it.
Why don't you stand on your feet?
Ed went up first. He's a very, very lanky and strong person. And then I went up because Jody had decided that because I was shorter than he was and he was stronger than myself, he would stay behind to make sure I didn't fall. It was really, really easy at first. There was no problems, and we climbed and climbed. About halfway up, we saw that it was getting very, very, very steep. Very steep. I personally myself started getting a little bit scared, and I'm sure the others did too, but we were men, you know.
Good job, Jody.
We wanted to prove to each other that we can make it up the hill.
Okay, Jody?
I make it all the way up to the top, and Jeff wanted to take a picture of Jody. So I went to the other side to look at the view.
Hey, Jody, smile!
I looked back down at Jody, and Jody had absolutely no fear. He seemed very, very in control of the situation.
I've never heard Jeff yell like that before. He yelled to me, go get help, Jody had fallen.
I ran over to him and I realized that he was going to be in serious trouble.
Hold on, bud. You're gonna be okay.
At first, I just didn't want to touch him. I didn't know if his back was broken or his neck was broken, but he was having a lot of trouble breathing.
Oh, man. It went down.
I put my hand on the back of his head in order to try and gently shift it so that he would be more able to breathe. When I did so, my whole hand collapsed into his head, and my fingers were actually in his brains.
Ed found lifeguard Bob Ingersoll, who happened to be patrolling the beach just a few hundred yards away.
As I came upon him, I could hear his breath was occluded. It was very raspy. The way he was breathing was possible he had internal injuries. His condition was one of the worst that I'd seen. He needed to be taken to the hospital immediately. There was no time to waste.
All right, what have you got? Phosphorus, this guy fell off the rocks. He's sort of in an anal breathing pattern.
In the back of my mind, I thought he might die. But I didn't want to believe it. I wouldn't let it surface to the front.
LA County paramedics were on the scene within 10 minutes.
Captain got a head injury.
I've never realized how much Jody meant to me. I never realized how much I loved him. I never realized what friends actually meant until the medic basically said, this kid's probably going to die.
A rescue helicopter from the Los Angeles County Fire Department arrived within 12 minutes. Among those on board was paramedic Robert Fuller.
The best location for us at that point was some distance from the patient. We knew that we had a situation that we referred to as a scoop and run.
Hey guys, what do you got?
This guy, he was broken up. And that meant that as soon as we could get the patient secured, we were going to begin rapid transport.
Jody was rushed to Westlake Medical Center, where a trauma team was awaiting his arrival, including Dr. John Kaderka.
When he arrived in the emergency department, this guy was a mess. He had low blood pressure, he had a weak, thready, rapid pulse rate. He had agonal respirations, he had obvious head injury where he was unconscious. He had massive chest trauma with fractured ribs on both the sides. He had a collapsed lung. This is probably one of the worst trauma patients I've taken care of in several years. I didn't think this guy stood a chance to live.
19-year-old Jody Nolan underwent more than 8 hours of surgery, during which his spleen and part of one lung were removed and numerous broken bones repaired. When his parents, Alice and Truett, arrived from Texas, they found their critically injured son in a coma.
He's received some major injuries to his chest and his abdomen.
I was very nervous about going in to see him for the first time. Didn't know what I would see. I knew he would be on a respirator. I knew that my son may die. And I kept trying to get some reassurance from the nurses, and the doctors. Is he going to make it? Do you think he's going to make it? Is there any way he can make it? And of course, no one could assure us of that. And that's a terrible feeling.
Jody, can you feel my hand? Squeeze it if you do. I told my wife that Jody was running the race of his life tonight, and that he may not win it. And we had to prepare ourselves if he didn't make it.
Jody, you got another letter today.
Looking at my brother, the thoughts going through my mind were, oh my God, I'm going to lose someone else that's really close to me. And I thought about my family and my parents and what it would be like to have 3 in a family instead of 4.
Your big Bronco is at my house, and I adjusted the carburetor for you.
He, my wife, or our daughter, or some of our friends was by his side at all times, and we kept talking to him even when he was in the coma. We felt that if he knew we were there, then he would leave us.
The first time I really remember him starting to come out of the coma was a very exciting moment.
Can you hear me, Jody?
This was almost 3 weeks into it, and it was like there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
After months of intense rehabilitation therapy, Jody has resumed a full and active life.
They told me I'd been in this big fall, and I barely even remembered I was in California.
You're still not crazy. Good work.
I think Jody was an inspiration to people in the rehabilitation center because he gave it 100%. He would always do more than was asked of him to do. And he did it in a cheerful manner most of the time.
Several years of
Medicare Advantage plan could help lower your out-of-pocket costs by up to $1,200 or more. The Medicare...
Out there to see it.
There was a sense when we drove away that we were putting it behind us, and that it didn't have to be the center of our lives anymore, that we had made it through.
It's a new beginning. I ended one chapter of my life, and now it's time to start a new one.
Today on Rescue 911, up in flames.
I couldn't see the first 2 floors of the hotel.
A toxic blaze engulfs a posh island resort.
They were bringing the people from the roof down onto the beach.
Witness the heroic efforts of rescuers as they risk their lives to save others.
The smoke got very thick.
And feel the pain of loved ones separated by the flames.
I was scared of never seeing my parents again and my friends.
On Rescue 911.
On the last day of 1986, the plush DuPont Plaza Hotel in San Juan, Puerto Rico was booked to capacity with American tourists. Hundreds of people were packed into the casino on the 2nd floor when tragedy struck. Most of the footage you'll see was taped as a desperate fight for life began.
Because it was New Year's Eve, the casino was closing early. And so I said I was going to go in with some of my friends and play for a while.
John Benevento and his family had come to San Juan to spend Christmas vacation sunning and gambling.
My friend Pat Massaro was on a losing streak, and so we walked out. And as we walked out, a black ball of smoke and flame shot across the staircase, making it impossible to go down that staircase. We backed into the casino.
John was trapped. His wife Joan, unaware of the fire, had just let their 2 young children go back up to their hotel room.
I was on the beach faced away from the hotel, and I smelled something very odd. And by the time I got up off the chair and turned around, I couldn't see the first 2 floors of the hotel. There was thick, black smoke, so thick that you just couldn't see the hotel at all. I ran across the beach yelling, "The kids are inside, the kids are in there." And there was nothing I could do. I stood there literally thinking, I'm going to stand here and my children are going to die.
When we continue.
It was like a bomb going on, and somebody yelled that it was the hotel on fire. And at that point, it looked like a war going on.
Wake up every morning to Funny Side Up.
I tell you, Michael, when it comes to jive,
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, please call again or give right away at loveshriners.org.
Your gift makes a difference. Thank you
Victoria, the humble actress.
All the most beautiful people in the world move to LA to become stars, leaving behind in their wake beauty voids for the rest of us to fill.
Hot in Cleveland. Weeknights at 6 p.m. Eastern on Get TV.
Around 3:40 p.m., the calls for help began to come in. A fire had exploded across the lower floors of the DuPont Plaza, blocking all exits. Hundreds of guests and workers were trapped, including more than 300 in the crowded casino.
In a short period of time, the casino turned into a mob scene. Chaos, people on fire, screaming. Blackjack table stools were starting to fly through the windows. People were tossing them out the windows, see if they could break them. Bodies, people were starting to fling themselves through the windows. So that's when I decided to go out the window. When I landed on the cement, the fire just roared, and when I looked up, I mean, everybody was on fire.
14 fire trucks, more than 100 firefighters, and 35 ambulances responded to the scene.
The front side of the entrance of this hotel was so big, which prevented our ladder truck to reach no higher than the first or second story. That limited us very greatly.
When Puerto Rico's interagency disaster coordinator, Ephraim Amott, arrived on the scene, the fire was burning out of control.
The heavy smoke that was coming out of the hotel was a nauseous and toxic smoke, so toxic that people can die with just by having 2 or 3 respirations.
Flames were all the way up on the wall, up to the 6th or 7th floor. There was a lot of people still in the building, yelling for help.
Linda and Michael Wolf had left their 2 teenage daughters by the hotel pool just before the fire broke out.
We were in a store and I started smelling smoke.
We couldn't understand what it was. We didn't know what it was. And somebody yelled that it was the hotel on fire. We ran as fast as our feet would carry us back to the hotel. And at that point, it looked like a war going on. We saw people laying down by the pool, bloody and screaming and crying, and then we looked up and we saw the people at the hotel windows trying to get out. Our minds were on our daughters, and I was praying that for once they didn't listen to me, because I had just told them to go upstairs. And that's where we saw an acquaintance of ours, and he told us, oh yes, he had just seen the girls walking upstairs to the room.
Inside the hotel, people were beginning to panic. Dense smoke funneled up the stairwells and elevator shafts, driving people out to the balconies and up to the roof, including fitness instructors Nick Busey and his wife Bonnie, then 6 months pregnant.
When we got to the penthouse, we were just hoping to find a way out, to get fresh air. There was a lot of smoke coming up different sides of the building, and what people were trying to do was just hover to one side to the other side as the smoke came up.
While on routine patrol, police helicopter pilot Julio Colon spotted the smoke rising from the hotel.
I saw people coming out to the roof. By that time, I was thinking, those people getting burned there, and I don't believe I can do anything.
The roof was not built for helicopters. There was not even enough space between the elevator shaft and the edge of the roof for a safe landing. With only a few feet to spare between the blades and the wall, Julio landed precisely on the extreme corner of the roof. Bonnie Busey was among the first 6 women and children taken in the small, overloaded chopper. But with people streaming up to the penthouse at an alarming rate, it would take all night to get them down, and they might not have that much time.
I started crying for help.
Private charter pilot Pat Walters heard the call. He too began airlifting people off the roof.
We have smoke coming up, possible visibility being obscured. We have heat thermals coming up, possibly making it a very shaky approach. If you crash, you're going to crash down on the people that are around the fire. You're not going to get far enough away. You're going to go straight down like a rock.
I expected Nick to be right behind me in the next helicopter. 2 or 3 helicopters came in. My husband wasn't there, so I was getting a little bit worried.
Police officer Oscar Araya volunteered to be dropped on the roof to help organize the rescue. There he found Nick Busey.
I saw a guy pulling people from the balcony to the top of the roof and said to him, I need you to help because I was alone and we have too many people up there. He answered right away, okay, no problem, I stay with you. He gone back and stay pulling people from the balcony to the top of the roof.
They wouldn't let you go anywhere near the front of the DuPont. There were hundreds of people just lined up, watching the fire, watching what was going on.
I was just beside myself how I could go on without my daughters, not knowing whether they were alive or dead.
When we continue.
All I thought about were the children. Where are they? Living in an elevator. I was just praying that somebody would find them.
Both his legs had been broken when he jumped from the casino window and fell 15 feet to the roof below.
Needs and budget. Plus, Humana has vision plans too, with coverage for exams, eyeglasses, and more. How much could you save? There's a quick, easy way to find out. Call Humana now at the number on your screen for a free quote and discover the coverage you need at a price that'll make you smile.
Many people had already been rescued from the hotel, but the fire was still out of control. On the streets below the hotel, Joan Benevento waited, hoping that her husband and their children were still alive. The injured were brought to a makeshift triage area near the hotel pool.
Most of the victims had respiratory problems because of the smoke. Fractures or some kind of burns.
Among the wounded on the pool lounge chairs, Joan Benevento found her husband, John. Both his legs had been broken when he jumped from the casino window and fell 15 feet to the roof below.
By the time I arrived, he had been told that the kids were inside, and he was just yelling, God won't take my kids, God, please don't take my kids. He was just beside himself, and I think having to deal with him and try and get him calmed down helped me at least start to move and think again. I saw people being brought down ladders from balcony to balcony. From where I was standing at times, they looked like small people, and maybe that's them. But as I would watch, it wasn't, and I did not see them at all.
National Guard Colonel Jose Maldonado was the third chopper pilot on the scene.
Our blades were just simply too large to land on top of the building, so what we did is we hovered next to the building, placed the helicopter with one skid on the side of the building, and people jumped onto our helicopter. The smoke columns and the heat columns coming up jolted our helo. Sometimes it would just take us off. The smoke got very thick. I was afraid the fire was going to progress through the building.
We stood behind the barriers, and it was probably the longest hour that we've ever spent.
And I happened to just focus my eyes on 2 girls coming down out of the room. When they were just 3/4 of the way down, it just hit me that it was them.
And at that point, there was no barrier that can stop us. We just tore in, we jumped over the barrier, and we ran over. all four of us were holding on to one another, crying, and just a very joyful reunion. And it was just something that will never, ever go from our mind.
Sandy and Jody Wolf were taken to a nearby hospital and treated for smoke inhalation. Hospitals all over the city were receiving casualties from the fire.
It was totally helplessness for me, not to be able to get up. All I thought about 4 hours were my children. Where are they? Were they upstairs? Were they in an elevator? I was just praying that somebody would find them and help them.
Someone from our group told me that they were bringing the people from the roof down onto the beach. So I went right away back down to where the helicopter was coming in. And I think my heart sank because they were all adults. And my thought was, children would have come down first. If my kids had been up there, they would have been brought down. They weren't on the beach. And then I really didn't know where to turn.
By sundown, 8 choppers were involved in the rescue efforts. But it would soon be dark, and Bonnie Busey had still not heard from her husband, Nick.
Hours were going by and hours were going by, and there's no Nick. At the beginning of the fire, my biggest concern was me being pregnant and an unborn child. When I didn't see Nick for a long time, then I think my concern was for him.
As soon as I was assured by the firemen that they had confined the fire, I sent people with self-contained breathing apparatus to make sure that nobody was still there desperate and looking for help.
I found the first body almost at the entrance of the lobby. I feel sad, because those people was innocent people that died right there.
It was dark, so I hadn't seen Nick for about 5 hours, and I didn't know where to look. Our friends were staying at a hotel nearby, so I finally got to that hotel and went inside, and when I walked through the doors, that's when I saw Nick. It was just a very happy moment.
After helping more than 150 other people get off the roof, Nick Busey got into one of the last helicopters himself.
The helicopter rescue was over. There were no more people being brought down.
He's thinking the worst things imaginable. Now you're thinking of them dead.
When I just had no other places to turn, I thought I saw some movement up in the balconies. And as we came across the street and got a little closer, I could see that in fact there were people on a balcony. And a little closer, I could see that someone was carrying someone. A little closer still, and that person was a little person, and then the dark hair, and then I saw that it was Brandon.
7-year-old Brandon Benevento had been kept safe in a 14th floor room by a couple who did not know him.
Someone was holding me back in the crowd because I was trying to get through, and I'm sure they probably thought I was some crazy person. I could see he was okay. Just all of the commotion after all he had been through was very upsetting for him. I was checking to see if I could find Chandra.
Within minutes, 10-year-old Chandra was put into the arms of a waiting friend. Chandra had been kept with her brother by the same couple. Her father was the last to hear.
Somebody came screaming over. They found him. They found him. I kept saying, "You sure? Are you positive? It's my children."
I was so happy to see them. It was just an unbelievable moment.
Only when he finally heard that the children were safe
would John Benevento allow himself to be transported to a hospital for treatment?
It was probably one of the most happiest moments of my life. To know I'd come out of that building alive.
The next day, the bodies of 98 people were removed from the charred hotel. Arson investigators determined that the fire had been deliberately set. Hotel workers involved in a labor dispute had thrown a lit can of flammable material into an empty storage room. They were subsequently sentenced to life in prison.
There was a lot of gloom. The whole city took it to heart that there was a disaster.
And still, they saved so many lives.
Hundreds of men, women, and children were rescued that day. Nearly half lifted off the roof by helicopter.
Those helicopter pilots were unbelievably tremendous. They were the best that anybody could ever ask for at the time that you needed a pressure person.
In the past 3 years, Nick Busey has gotten many awards for his bravery that New Year's Eve. Within a few months of the fire, Bonnie gave birth to their first child.
When Megan was born, I'd have to say it was probably the happiest moment of our lives.
Our baby was healthy, Bonnie was healthy.
Oh, it looks like she's doing gymnastics.
All I wanted. And thank God things worked out for as many people as it did.
The Benevento family has gone on with
These needs and budget. Plus, Humana has vision plans too, with coverage for exams, eye.
Died in this fire, and I think how lucky I am that I'm not even hurt. Lucky we're alive, all of us.
Meow. See, that was hot in Cleveland, but they just played the rest of Rescue 911. And there were 4 episodes of Hot in Cleveland and then All in the Family. Those were today's episodes. For more Rescue 911 episodes, hit the big red button and subscribe. I'm going to click on Finish Event now to end this live stream, because it's like 9:12. And I'm going to take a walk and take a shower. Peace out, YouTube.